Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Let's just wrap up on the foreign policy, and then we'll get to Norway as well. This morning on National Public Radio, that Diane Rehm Show weekly review, one of the left liberal oligarch commentators noted the Arab Spring has turned into Arab Storm. Well, that's actually turned into a long, hot summer of war. The Arab Spring has come to a standstill. This is now another historical merit for Gaddafi. Say what you will. He has stopped the destabilizations. And it looks like, again, the perspective is more likely that NATO will collapse and the rebels will collapse, the rebels collapsing into a mutual slaughter of armed terrorist factions, rather than having Gaddafi ousted. I think I don't know what they're saying in Las Vegas and the London bookies, but looks like Gaddafi has better chance of surviving than these other people. But the rest of it has come to a standstill. Let's look at Syria. The Washington Post is so disappointed. They wanted to overthrow Syria, and it's not going well. Washington Post is whining and complaining. The Syrian rebellion is leaderless. We don't have it's completely disorganized. There's no leader. There's no structure. Now we're told there's something called the Local Coordinating Committees of Syria, and they call for a virtual parliament which would debate policy for Syria. How many seats will go to the gay girl in Damascus faction? Because they'll all be under screen names. Probably, 10% of them will be from U.S. Cyber Command, 10% of them will be from U.S. Central Command, 10% will be from MI6, 10% will be from the DGSE, and so on down the line. So, Syria going nowhere. Egypt, again, we are drifting closer and closer to the June days of 1848. Remember, General Cavaignac opens fire on the Parisian working class that had actually helped to make the revolution, or destabilization, whatever you want to call it then. Today, the CIA putsch with Samantha Power, and McFaul from the National Security Council telling Field Marshal Tantawi to oust Mubarak. This has now evolved to the point where the hostility between the army junta and the demonstrators has reached fever pitch. Cavaignac opened fire on the crowd. When will Tantawi become the new Cavaignac, opening fire on the crowd? Again, look back to 1848, and you'll get good guidelines to where we are headed right now. We've got the U.S. position in Afghanistan is collapsing fast. Karzai's brother assassinated last week. That you might compare that to the U.S. to Avril Harriman assassinating Ngo Dinh Diem and Nu in South Vietnam in November of 1963. And the lesson of that one is when you start doing that stuff, the destabilization comes back home. And we know from the French experience in Algeria, if you try to keep up a colonial war after a certain point, it can destroy your system of government. Ask the French Fourth Republic. We're now at the point of 10 years, the 10-year mark. Well, the 10-year mark of the USSR in Afghanistan goes from 1979 to 1989, and by the time the USSR finally got out of Afghanistan, they were 2 years away or less from collapse. The whole form of government collapsed. 10 years of the U.S. in Afghanistan, that'll be October of this year, 2001 to 2011, will the U.S. form of government collapse? I would hope that it doesn't, but the best way to avoid that, get out of there immediately. Get out. Save all that money. Same thing for Iraq. The violence is escalating in Iraq. The U.S. is supposed to be out by December 31st. We want it. We want it now. Why wait for December 31st? There are attempts. There are all kinds of schemes to let the U.S. forces stay as trainers. No way. The U.S. is claiming an alliance of Iran with Al-Qaeda. Oh, my God. The pot calling the kettle black. The U.S. is in an open, flagrant, arrogant alliance with Al-Qaeda in Libya, and now they attempt to turn the tables on Iran. The U.S. claims that money for these fighters comes into Afghanistan in these areas comes from Kuwait and Qatar. Yeah, maybe it's the government of one of those. The Iranians are accused by the Treasury of funneling money from Kuwait and Qatar into Iraq. All of this, it's time to liquidate these adventures and do what Ataturk and what de Gaulle were able to do. That's statesmanship at a point like this. And save yourself a powerful country and give up the idiotic dream of empire. Now let's shift gears to Norway. Concerning Norway, attention of the world media on the Patsy Breivik and all kinds of people attempting to draw sociological conclusions from the story of Breivik. This is crazy. You can't look at Breivik and make conclusions about societal evolution. You look at Breivik, you can find out about what the policies of secret intelligence agencies are, mainly NATO Intel, that are the principal suspects in this case. You got to get yourself a copy of 9/11 Synthetic Terror Made in USA. If you haven't read that, how can you live in the modern world? You are simply an easy mark, a dupe for all of these concocted false flag provocations for political reasons. And as we come up now to the 10th anniversary of September 11th, we will be reminding you, as one commentator said, 9/11 Synthetic Terror is the gold standard of 9/11 books. It's a political interpretation. It focuses on the drills, the exercises, and it offers a methodology which you can use to identify these things and understand them as they emerge. When such an event as Norway takes place, the main focus of the world media is on the Patsy, the Oswald, the Atta, and they want to know all about him, life, death, miracles, his ideology, his writings, his personal habits, his likes and dislikes. Does he prefer pizza or hamburgers, or what is it? This is for idiots. You're being sucked in. Ignore the Patsy for the moment and look for two other categories, the moles and the technicians. This is how it was really done. The Patsy is something we can get back to in a minute. And above all, look for the presence of drills and exercises that can be used to conduit and bootleg the entire operation in the same way that von Stauffenberg, we've just had the anniversary of the 26th of July, 1944. If you want to knock off somebody like Hitler, the only way they could do that was by taking the Valkyrie operation and rewriting it and redirecting it and attempt to conduct a coup under the cover of that. And that's how it has to be done, always, everywhere, under any and all conditions. Because the coup faction, the rogue network that does these things, cannot simply do it in public in a government bureaucracy where they have rivals, enemies, neutrals, and others that will not go along. So let's look for moles and patsies. Let's look, for example, at the police in Norway. The moles, first of all. Well, we know as of November of last year, November 2010, that the United States was busily recruiting a network of retired policemen in Norway. This is SIMAS, CIMAS, Security Incident Management Analysis System. These are reports from a Norwegian television station of November 2010, repeated by NTV of Germany. The Security Incident Management Analysis System is articulated in the form of Surveillance Detection Units, SDUs. The U.S. recruited to this the head of the Oslo Anti-Terror Police, allegedly for surveillance, but maybe for more ambitious undertakings. We'll be back in a minute.